So yes, you're very welcome this evening. This is our fourth of four Q&A sessions. So sometimes I've just got somebody else in the waiting room. Sometimes people are a wee bit slow to get started. So has anybody any thoughts or questions about their project? Anybody wanting to grow food or have problems sourcing anything like polytunnels? Don't be shy.
Just before anyone jumps in, I'd just like to say to anyone who isn't comfortable just jumping in or don't want to be talking over people, there is a function to raise your hand as well. If you go to reactions, you should be able to raise your hand and we'll be able to say that you want to say something and come to you.
Anybody want to share even?
I think I was just going to say as well, maybe just as well while we're getting started, I think Orla, maybe we were just going to have maybe a bit of a raise of hands. I think everybody here has probably got a grant, so well done, congratulations, and we're looking forward to working with you. But probably school pollinator grant and then small grant. So could you kind of give me a bit of an idea who is small grants recipients? Anybody? No, so school, that would be school pollinator grants. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Just gives us a wee bit of an idea, kind of, you know, who's in the room and maybe what questions might be answered. So yeah, absolutely. You've got the experts here. So please let us know a wee bit about your projects, any positives, any negatives, anything, any issues coming up, because the guys here are fantastic. So please use them.
And is anybody having any issues with sourcing anything at the moment? I know, but
I think Rory's hand was up there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if I might just jump in and ask the first question. I suppose I'm in a school down in Enniskillen, and we've got the schools grant. So part of it is to make a wildflower meadow, and I suppose the area is a grassy bank. You know, it's a deep enough soil, fairly fertile. So I'm wondering, is it best to clear it, as in scrape all the topsoil off and start, or would it be better just, and seed it with a wildflower mix, or is it better just to try and manage it, with certain cutting and go for a sort of a slower developing into a wildflower meadow? So I suppose if that's my question, whether to kind of, seed it out and scrape off soil, or whether just to try and manage it, or a mixture of the two. Like, I don't want to waste a lot of money on wildflower seeds just sowing it if the grass is just going to outcompete it, if that makes sense.
That's a really good question, Rory, and a question that we get asked a lot. I don't know, Rosie, would you like to take that one?
Sure. So I actually used to advocate scrape off and seed, but now that's not the way that the best way to do it. The best way is the first method that you mentioned, is just to let it grow, see what comes through and from the seed bank, see what you have there. So we're in August, early August now. So if it's been cut recently, let it grow until even like late September, and then cut that again, but you need to lift all of the cuttings off. So effectively what you're doing is removing nutrients. Native wildflowers grow on really poor, low nutrient soil. So the more you cut and lift, the more chances you'll have of different species kind of breaking through the sward, as they would call it. Your really vigorous grass species like Yorkshire fog and ryegrass, couch grass, that sort of thing, which can be quite invasive. You can take the energy out of them through time, but it is a longer process. But you can, if you're in a school, you can make it a project. So you can get the kids to go out with quadrats. If they don't have quadrats, you can just easily make them out of bamboo canes, little like 50 centimeter by 50 centimeter or 1 meter quadrats. Go out and see what they can find, literally just counting how many different flowers they can see, how many different types of flowers. They can even do a little fit count and see how many different insects visit those flowers, like your dandelions or whatever you have. So there's lots of little engaging projects you can do, really simple ones with the kids. And then you'll go back and do that then in the following summer and each year, and they'll see a difference. They can do simple little graphs and pictures, even just draw pictures of the things that they see. And there's lots of different educational key stage avenues you can go down there with that project and let them see it grow over time. Yeah, that would be the best thing to do. And I suppose other things would be aspect. Is it in a sunny spot? Is there drainage? What's the soil type like? There's wee things like that you can maybe think about as well. But definitely the cut and lift every autumn. If you have too many vigorous grass species, you can, after you've cut it, you can scarify it, and that's a fun thing for the kids to do. They can just scrape over it with a rake or even just little kids trowels and kind of dig out little areas, and then you can seed in a species called yellow rattle, known as the meadow maker. That's its nickname. And it's semi-parasitic, and it'll attack the really vigorous grass species like Yorkshire fog, ryegrass, or any other things that you have in there. It needs the winter to germinate. So you'll start to see that effect over time. And if you still get too much stuff, you can cut in June time. You can take more energy out of it, and you can cut and lift in June as well. So it's the guys can send you simple step-by-step methods on that and how to do that. And there's lots of information from the All Ireland Pollinator Plan, which we've mentioned in previous sessions, that you can go to and you can read that and do it step-by-step form. Yeah, and plan out your project that way.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
That's
No
great.
worries.
Thank you, Rosie. We also have, I'm delighted, joining us tonight is Pauline Campbell from Northern Ireland Environment Agency. So Pauline very kindly came and helped us to judge the Green Flag Pollinator Awards earlier in the month. So you're welcome, Pauline. Lovely to see you.
Thank you. My internet's not very good tonight, so I'll turn my camera off if you don't mind. But I'm here. I'm still here.
No problem. That's lovely. Thank you. So Rory had this question there about creating wildflower or creating a meadow. Was any other questions for us? Any problems or issues you're having with anything?
Or anything good that you want to share? Like, this is a space where it's good to share your stories as well, and other people might be able to learn from them, take a wee bit of encouragement.
Anybody really storming on with their projects? Getting very excited?
Sharon, are you having a bit of trouble with your sound? Maybe, Sharon? I don't know if Sharon's trying. I think you're still on mute, Sharon, as far as I can see.
Can you hear me now?
That's you now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
No, I was going to ask, where would you recommend getting wildflower seed mixtures and shrubs and perennials from, local garden centres, or where?
It was Sharon. Whereabouts are you based?
Dromore, County Tyrone.
Dromore, County Tyrone. Okay. In terms of, if I know you probably heard Rosie there talking about how to regenerate a wildflower area, but
yes,
if you're wanting a wildflower seed mix for space or some planters or something, and it's really important to get sort of native Irish wildflower seeds. So there are a couple of companies, and I think we have listed those in the suppliers, like Eco Seeds and True Harvest Seeds.
Okay.
Who supply native mixes. What you don't want to do is buy something random off the internet, you know what I mean? And sometimes the really colorful mixes contain, they're species that are not native, but at worst they could be invasive species. Do you know what I mean? And you're like blackgrass and stuff, so you're letting those out into the countryside. But if you go for somebody like True Harvest Seeds or Eco Seeds, or connecting to nature as well. But I think we have provided those links ladies, haven't we? From
Yes, I've just popped that into the chat. Any links that we share in the chat today, we'll collate into a document and send them out after the session. And that will be along with any other links that we have sent out with the previous session. So you are probably in the best position. You'll be getting not just one session, but 4 sessions worth of resources.
Dilly, I think
that's right.
and during the grant process as well, I think we got quite a lot of requests for like seed bombs, are they called? Or that, and we thought maybe they weren't the best thing to use.
No, we kind of, I suppose we're kind of trying to steer people away from the whole seed bomb thing, because, you know, probably for the same reason as well. And I know people have just like thrown seed bombs out there, and you know, some things have come up and stuff, but you do need to do a wee bit of prep sometimes. So if that's, as Rosie said, cutting and lifting, which is just removing the fertility from the space that you have, and then wait to see what's naturally in your seed bank as well, is kind of sort of the best and cheapest option to do that. But I suppose if you have containers or something and you're looking a bit of instant color, then yes, scarify or scrape back, or if you're starting with, you know, bare soil and stuff, then make sure you're planting like a wee native mix. And they can be, you know, there are different mixes you can get with either annual flowers, which are flowers that sort of appear, flower, and complete their life cycle in 1 year. And then there are like biennials and perennials, you know, which are going to last sort of over a longer period of time and stuff. But if you go to one of those good websites, they do kind of explain that. Also, as already has been mentioned, the All Ireland Pollinator Plan website has lots of really, really good information there about creating meadows and stuff. So it's pollinators.ie. Basically,
I think we said last time, sorry, Gillian, interrupted you.
No, go on ahead.
No, I was just going to say, remember, I think we talked about it last week after we had the wild gardener Colin Stafford Johnson, isn't it, last week in a chat, and he was saying as well, which I find really interesting, that, you know, if you're planting native as well, then the soil and the environment that we live in will lead to things thriving, which makes it very, you know, easy to grow things, and things don't need watered, things don't need tended to as much whenever they are native, you know, which I suppose for a lot of schools and whatever, you want things that are easy to grow and to tend to, I suppose.
Sure. And in terms of the perennials, Sharon, I know you asked that too, and Rosie has very helpfully put in futureforests.ie, who are based in Cork, but they also they have a brilliant mail order service, and they don't charge enough. You know, we can order loads and loads of stuff, and they charge you like €15 for boxes and boxes of stuff to come up.
Okay.
Our Seed Savers, is another one. There are people, again, we've listed those and sort of suggested suppliers like Craigmore Trees, you know, who grow a lot of their own stuff here as well, and Papervale Trees in Newry, you know, again, who would propagate, you know, their own. So, and and your local garden centre too, you know, if you have a relationship with them, sort of explain that, or go with the list to say, look, these are the things and the species that I want, and you know, to help bees and butterflies, and they should be able to supply you with like small native trees and stuff like that too. But Future Forests is one that I would use a lot myself, and they're very good for fruit trees and things too, fruit bushes.
Good job. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Hi, Jelly, I've got a question.
Yes, Helena.
How are you?
You're really good. Thank
Yes.
you. Lovely to meet you. Helena is married to one of our colleagues, so she's also.
He was wondering if you would recognise me.
Yeah, good to see you.
So part of our project is actually I have a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. Some are sort of general questions and some are more specific. Part of our project is introducing growing fruit and vegetables, and we're starting by growing a herb garden we
Mhm.
do grow some vegetables already, so to sort of add to that, we wanted to start a herb garden.
Yeah.
And so really it's just to get advice on what the best way to start that to make it, you know, the longevity of it, you know,
Sure.
the longevity of growing rather than it just being something that grows for a couple of years or whatever.
Yeah.
Like we would use potatoes and onions and stuff already to make soup, and I think,
Sure.
you know, in harvest time or whatever, so
Yeah.
an add on to that would be the herb garden.
Sure.
And it's we allowed to do it like in a sort of, you know, in a greenhouse sort of environment, or is it okay to do it outside, or what would be the best way to start?
Yeah, okay. So there are lots of, again, what we call perennial herbs. So they're like permanent herbs. Basically, you either grow them for seed or you buy them as a small plant. You put them in the home where they're going to stay, and all things being equal, they should be there for years and years and years and years.
Okay.
You know, they'll either die back or slow down in the wintertime. And then come springtime, they'll just shoot up into growth again. So things that I would grow here a lot of are hardy herbs. So things like rosemary, thyme, sage. Also we would grow quite a lot of tarragon. We'd grow things like lovage and sweet cicely, which are probably a wee bit more out there. Fennel, herb fennel is a lovely thing to grow. Tough as old boots, and you can get, the thing about I love about herb fennel is you can eat the leaves and the fronds and the flowers and the seeds. So it's a bit like nasturtiums from that point of view. It's really, you know, they're multi-purpose. Things like marjoram, which are all marjoram or oregano, and when they flower, they're also brilliant for pollinators as well. It's the same as like the thyme, obviously, and the rosemary. And then things that I would grow from seed, and I would grow them direct. Again, you wouldn't really need a polytunnel or a greenhouse for this, or things like coriander and parsley. You know, so if you're growing stuff for soup, I think that's that can add like a freshness and lots of flavor and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kelly, would you recommend doing it? Because one thing that I saw, it was like, you know, like a big kind of wooden wheel thing, and it was all sectioned off, and I thought that would be good to, you know, to have it separate but then still together.
yes.
Would you recommend something like that or not?
I've seen that, like a herb or yeah.
Yeah, it's like a wheel, but is that restricting the growth, or is it okay to do it that way?
You know what? It's okay to do it that way, because I suppose anything I take it you're going to make that wheel out of wood or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, the thing about plants is that they're you know, the roots go down and they spread out and stuff. So and things like rosemary, thyme, they're like, you know, they grow well but not widely. So something like mint, mint is a brilliant thing to grow too, but it can take off and take over your whole garden on you. So if you're going to grow mint, I would kind of try to put it in a really big pot and sink that into the ground, you know, so that
Okay.
don't spread anywhere. But yeah, that's one of those is great. The thing that I always say about planters or raised beds or stuff is, especially in schools, don't sort of make them wider than a meter, because your arm can only stretch half a meter. Otherwise, and if you can get from both sides, you know, then a meter or 1.2 meters for adults is really as wide as you want to go. Otherwise, you have to start sort of walking in the middle of your bed. And when you start doing that, you're sort of compacting the soil a wee bit. So it's good to try and avoid that if you can. So even if you're, you know, thinking about making that wheel and you want to make it quite big, sort of leave small, you know, small paths up through it for small to get in to get at the herbs and things. Yeah, but it can look really nice, and of course there's a brilliant smell from herbs.
Just thought for a school, because we're having different sections for different classes, primary school, and I thought that would be an easy way for, you know, to assign that to one class, you know.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah. Brilliant. Sounds like a good idea.
Then the other thing, I'm sorry to take over the whole thing.
No,
The
no.
other thing I wanted to ask you about was that Gareth wants to be involved in our project. So is it okay for the field officers to come out to help kind of, no, just go here. Is it okay for them to come out and, you know, to give advice about where to plant things and
Oh,
stuff like that?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. If he's yes,
Sam is for the bombing.
you can probably
Sorry
twist
about that.
your arm there, Helena.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we will be sort of trying to, well, that's kind of what we, you know, we would ask you as well, what kind of support you guys would like, or we're sort of, we're here to help. So let us know what kind of support you would like. We are looking at hopefully doing some sort of regional workshops or question and answer sort of sessions, hopefully sort of September, October time. So, you know, with the amount of grants that are on at the moment, I doubt the field officers could get to everywhere.
Yeah.
So whether we do regional or, you know, we're also, we're all keeping Northern Ireland beautiful. So we also link up with eco schools. So, you know, there's carbon literacy training. There's lots of things going on that we can kind of signpost you to, or so you might, you know, be already involved with a field officer in your eco school, say. And definitely, you know, if you're in touch with them or they're coming out to visit you, definitely, you know, get that information. But from our point of view, yeah, we will try and organize some more sessions and give us the feedback about what you want. As I say, I won't be able to get to everybody, but hopefully regionally at least.
That's brilliant, Amanda. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Yes, Sharon.
This is a bit of a silly question, but I just want to clarify it. On the paperwork, it says multiple purchases of more than one item or service under £500 will require 2 quotes. So if I'm going to buy plant pots, like I have down here £100 worth of plant pots, and I had planned, like my local nursery sells them lovely colourful ones for 2 for £7, which I think is good because they're good big ones. So if I'm buying, say, 12 or 13 of those, do I really need to get a quote from somewhere else, or what?
I can answer that for you, Sharon. So the short answer is you actually do. So if multiple items go over the value of the amount that's stated in the procurement, then you absolutely do have to get a second quote. Now, that could be anything. It could be from online. It could be, you don't need to necessarily go and get email someone and invite a tender. It could be as simple as an online search, but it's just so that we can evidence that there was best value acquired. So,
yeah. I know, you know, we have budgeted everything here, and obviously get the best value out of the money that we're being given.
Exactly.
But yes, I just wanted to double check that for things like that, that it really did. We did have to have 2 quotes. That's okay.
No problem.
As Orla says, you can do a screenshot of an internet search, I think, isn't that?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. We accept screenshots of internet searches, online retail suppliers, things like that. It's not too onerous. It really isn't.
That's okay.
Okay.
Good job. Everybody's very shy, aren't you?
No,
I just managed to get on.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
We can indeed.
Yes, I seem to be struggling, but I'm not sure where my signal's very good. See, on the subject of the getting 2 quotes, we're very keen to use eco seeds for supplying our wildflower seeds, simply because they collect the seed in our locality, and we'd be very keen to use a seed source in our locality rather than trying to outsource it. You know, possibly we could buy it cheaper elsewhere, but we're keen to keep that connection.
Well, Well, Ted, I suppose from my point of view, yeah, EcoSeeds are one of our approved suppliers, and if they're beside you, that absolutely makes sense. And the thing about, not all wildflower seed mixes are born equal. Do you know what I mean? So if you're, if EcoSeeds have been at that for a long time, I suppose the same as Connecting to Nature or True Harvest Seeds or one of the other ones. So
Yes.
I mean, Orla might clarify.
So if I could, yeah, absolutely. There is no stipulation that you have to go with the cheapest quote. You absolutely can go with your preferred supplier. However, we must stipulate that you do have to have those extra quotes. And that is because this is public money, and we need everything evidenced back to Department of Agriculture, needs to prove that it wasn't just a simple case of just going out and buying willy-nilly, that there has to be a process gone through, and this is the process that's outlined in the letter of offer. So if you have any questions at all, further to this, just get in touch with me directly. There's most of the answers are in a document I had emailed out, which you can also resend. And there's also details of it in your letter of offer. But as I say, pick up the phone to me or send me an email, any questions around claim, quotations, things like that, and I can certainly clear those up.
That's grand. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
I have put in the chat, actually, just you might see the small grants email address and the school pollinator email address, and probably your best point of contact if you have any queries about your grant is to email. I know sometimes people like to talk on the phone or whatever, but those email addresses are monitored the most regularly. So if you can email those whichever grant you have, obviously, that will be the quickest way of getting a response. Okay, thanks.
That's grand. It's just the sequencing of events, because we're going to try and sow some of the wildflower seed in September rather than the spring, because obviously we've got a limited amount of time to have the money spent. When's the end of January, end of February? I can't remember exactly. It has to be spent by a certain time, hasn't it? So we need to get the seed, a lot of the seeds sown in September, and we're doing part of another thing we're doing as an add-on to this is we're doing these what we are called mini woodlands, where we plant a lot of birch trees and planters, and then planting wildflower underneath them to create sort of planters in the middle of the village that look like mini woodlands. We're going to plant bluebells and things in it to try and get so it actually looks like a wee micro woodland in the middle of the street. Sort of that's one of the things we're thinking of doing with the trees. So we're trying to buy birch trees that are containerized so we can get the seeds sown before the end of September.
Oh, that's great. Good idea. Like a wee pocket forest. Actually, I was reading about those.
Yes.
Yeah, the other day. Very good. Yeah, nice idea.
Julie, I have another little question just popped into my head there.
Sure.
We have a few disabled children in our school, and we're hoping to obviously include them as well. We have an autistic unit too. Not that makes a difference, but we want to make the whole thing inclusive for everybody. And we're thinking along the lines of doing some sort of, like planting they can do in tabletops and stuff. And just if we had any advice on that sort of general area, like what are easier things to plant for them, or is there anything that springs to mind that makes it an easier process?
Well, are you thinking about creating sort of high raised beds for wheelchair, for instance, go under, or?
Yeah, well, there's definitely, my vision is that I want to make some sort of area that's just, that's accessible like that can be accessed from that sort of level. But initially, to have some sort of opportunity available for them that they can do some planting on a table as such.
Sure.
And what sort of things would be easier?
Do you know what herbs are really, really good for
Right.
that? Even things like things you can containerize, like salad leaves and stuff.
Oh, right, okay.
Fast vegetables like spring onions, radishes, pea shoots. And
Right.
pea shoots, you can just buy like a packet of bag of peas, out of the corner shop, which are like 570p or something. and use those for pea shoots, you know, and they're up in a couple of weeks, and you can grow them inside, you can grow them in a windowsill, grow them on a tabletop. And then, you know, when they're about, they're 2 or 3 inches high, you can just cut them off above the first leaf. And then you can probably get 2 or 3 cuts off those, and they're a brilliant thing just to eat like that, or for kids to put in their salads or sandwiches, or yeah, you know what, I say it all the time that children who never eat anything green at all just absolutely love that. No,
Sounds good.
that's something they can do.
Yeah,
And
sorry, if you didn't mind me interrupting. Just I was looking at a website a few months ago, and it was I can't remember what it was called, but it was brilliant. It was a thing in England where they're doing these wheelchair-friendly planters, where they're actually on casters, where you could move them around, and the levels changed. So if somebody had a physical disability, that could be changed the levels, and were on wheels that could be moved around, so they could be broad access for to be able to physically be able to get near the planters.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the website was called, but it was brilliant. It was a thing of school. It was a school project.
That's
Very
fantastic.
good, Ted. Thank
That's
you.
brilliant, Ted. But could I just come in on that as well? Just one of we ran the rural pollinators grants just before the school pollinator grant rolled out. And there's an excellent example, a case study of a school, or it wasn't a school, sorry, it was a community group that did exactly, Helena, what you're asking. So, I mean, I'm more than happy to pass over details and see if Donna would want
That'd
to.
be great,
Even
Donna.
you could do a visit down and have a look and see what they've done there.
Another really good, sometimes, like if you're getting in contact with like a local men's shed, or group or something like that, you know, they're absolutely fantastic at making things and helping out, and making raised beds, making those kind of wheelchair accessible raised bed, you know, making anything really, they can normally turn their hand. So those relationships can be really good if you develop those. Local community groups, community gardens, those collaborations are really important. We've also heard, like, I know quite a lot of our schools as well, you know, grandparents love to get involved, to get that intergenerational relationships going. It's absolutely just heartwarming to see some of the little kids bringing in their grannies or grandads, you know, and that kind of planting is something that they can both do, and they can bring new skills to and bring understanding. And again, a lot of like handy grandads that are grandmas, you know, that might be help.
Actually. I didn't think that, because that is part of our project, is that we're doing, you know, the elder generation that used to be possibly past pupils, because it's our 160th year this year of our school open.
That might be brilliant. It's one thing that sort of, you know, can connect the two generations, but seem very far away from each other. But you know, you feel like sometimes the kids know more than almost our generations do about planting and about environmental issues, the same way as the older you know, generations do from years back, and reusing and you know, planting and things.
Great idea. That's great, Linda. Thanks.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, because Sharon, who said about buying pots, think about making them. As you said, the men's shed, like thinking about other ways of making your containers and not just going out and buy them, because you might find you might need to overspend on another part of your project, and then by using the community or the men's shed, you know, you can save that in a way, and reuse resources and connect in that sense. So there's tons of stuff on the internet. I mean, I have a couple of planters in my garden that are made of drawers that somebody had just dumped, drawers from like, you know, just like a wee side drawer or something like that, and you drill holes in the bottom and then it instantly becomes a planter. So just thinking out of the ordinary, and you know, you can paint the front of them and make them look nice because you want them to last, and you can use eco-friendly treatment like linseed oil and things like that can make it last a bit longer, and so it still looks aesthetically pleasing but fulfills the purpose that you needed to do. So. And baths, yeah, I have planted things in baths as well. So there's all sorts of stuff that you could do, and it's kind of fun and different. And with your wheelchair access as well, the bath is higher. You know, and you can get in there, and you've got that instant drainage. You've got different types of stuff you can plant. The slugs and the snails find it really hard to get up into a bath. So try to be imaginative and think about what you can do, and you can get the kids to paint the bath too and do all sorts of stuff. It'd be fun, make it fun.
Sorry, just interrupt again.
Sorry, go ahead, Ted.
No, so I was just going to say, on the subject of pots, my background is I'm a landscape contractor, I have thousands, probably tens of thousands of pots that I am trying to get rid of because I want to recycle, and they're really difficult to recycle. So 2 litre, 3 litre, 4, 7 and 10 litre pots. If anybody wants them, I'm happy to give them to them. I have hundreds and thousands of them. So if anybody wants them, anybody is you are looking for pots, I have them, and you can have and giving them away. I'll be glad to see them used.
That's great, Ted. Well, we'll have your email address, won't we?
Yes, you have my email address. Yes, and as I say, you're more than welcome to them. And the bath is a great day. We have baths at our bus station in Crossgar. The planters we use in them are enamel baths, and all the planters we have on our main street are recycled oil tanks with a side cut on them. And then we just put timber around them. Look, they're fantastic planters. You can put trees and everything into them.
Fantastic. Gosh,
That's a great idea. And Ted, I'm sure you're not the only landscape contractor that's in that position. You know, even
Yes.
Thinking about running to your local garden centre and asking what they have they're trying to get rid of, or, you know, local landscape gardeners or nurseries or whatever else. But even asking, you know, you're all in schools, even asking your parents, can you donate if you have an old bucket or something else, you know, especially if you're, you know, signed up to our plastic promise. It's a great way of trying to reuse your plastics and giving them a new lease of life. And like I was just saying, the only thing you have to do is drill holes in the bottom, and that's you good to go, and you can have fun with the kids, transforming something that would have gone into the landfill into something really lovely. I've seen some wee pictures of, God, I actually don't know where it was, but, you know, someone had done like a whole Minions themed garden out of like old plastic buckets and stuff like that. So it is amazing what a wee lick of paint can do, and push that plastic recycling into the kids' brains at the same time.
But I think we saw somebody who'd used what is it, Henry the Hoover, and I hold one of those for a planter. So you really can use everything. I don't know if anybody's mentioned it, but also free cycle, you know, pages, Facebook or whatever. You can always, you know, pick up. People are always trying to pass on things. You know, somebody's junk is somebody's treasure, whatever that saying is. So.
That's right. And also, I mean, big thing is if you want to grow potatoes, using old compost bags just with a few drain holes punched in the bottom is a really good new life for them as well. Anybody else? Any more questions?
I have one last question. I'm sorry, I have to go because I have to let my wee fella from football training. Just one last thing. On our last project, we got done the Live Here, Love Here logo and put it up around and they're still up there, but they're starting to fade. And I was wondering, would it be possible to get a few of the Live Here, Love Here signs, just the emblem with the Live Here on it, because we want to use them obviously in some of you know, it's a really good way of promoting it as well. If the logo, well, the logo is in what do you, where we could either get the logo off you. What do you call the wee thing you use? Oh, I can't remember what you call it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. We can send that out. If it
Yes.
hasn't already been sent to you, it will be sent.
Right. Okay.
Because many people do want to use it for their signage and get signage as part of the project. So we do have a little compressed folder that we'll send out. I think I've maybe got that scheduled for the start of September.
Okay.
I think some of you might have got the media pack, which should have the logo and stuff. I think some people did, maybe some people didn't. But
yeah,
yes, anything at all like that, just let us know. Also, I think at the end of the rural pollinator grant, I think everybody was sent out a sign for their garden, just with, you know, Live Here, Love Here and Deer and stuff on it, just to, you know, show it off. So I'm not sure if that'll get done this year or not, but yeah, we'll certainly keep you informed about that anyway.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted. Can I just ask that, since we do have Pauline on this evening, and she knows so much about all sorts of insects and plants and habitats and all the rest of it, Pauline, have you any sort of top tips for? What are your top 3 tips for pollinators? I know what you're going to say about one of them, actually. Lagoons, maybe.
Well, I don't know if I'm a big expert. I think there's other people that are even here that have more knowledge than me. But yeah, just think about diversity, and maybe think about the diversity of the different plants. Embrace your weeds. Because weeds are really, can be really valuable wildflowers actually. And maybe look at the diversity, thinking about structure, different structures, and thinking about life stages of your pollinators and your insects that you're trying to attract in. So maybe it's not just all about nectar and pollen. It's maybe about some areas of long grass for nesting, and maybe bare soil, and maybe patches of nettles, and so think about sort of different structures and different height of vegetation. And as Julie says there, yes, micro habitats as well, bare soil for some of your solitary bees, and maybe a hoverfly lagoon, and just different small little habitats. It was lovely to hear about the sort of the mini woodlands and that's a really nice idea. So yes, just diversity really, I think is a key word. And thinking about weeds, and what you're trying to attract in, and maybe a top tip would be to stand back and watch nature, and watch what insects are using, and maybe watch for the little markings on leaves, so that there's insects using them, and just sit and enjoy nature and just watch it. It's not all about sort of quick games, and although it might be beautiful to have sort of a whole instant wildflowers in a particular area, but I think that the value is whenever you're attracting a whole raft of different insects in, and you spend time watching and learning about the differences in all the insects and appreciating them. I think that's one of the things that children could probably teach us how to do. Sorry, Jenny, can't hear you.
Sorry, yes, we had talked about even doing those simple flower insect timed counts, and getting involved in citizen science, where you just watch a flower, and for a like 15-minute time period or whatever, and record what visits those, and then log those details, which really helps, I suppose, which really helps the authorities sort of to inform them what's going on and stuff. And I suppose the other thing which is really, really important is, yes, everybody focuses on the flowers and the nectar and the pollen and the lovely butterflies and the bees and stuff, but as you say, unless there are big patches of nettles and long grass and stuff for the larvae to eat, you're never going to get the butterflies, are you? Because the caterpillar, you need to have food for all life stages, basically. So
Yeah.
to embrace your wild side.
Yeah. Nature's not neat, as they keep saying.
No. Yeah, I was going to say, we're trying to advocate places to feed, breed and shelter. So, and Butterfly Conservation did this fantastic campaign over the winter where they were like, do nothing for nature. So it was a complete oxymoron, if that's the right word, I don't know, but it was so good, because just leave it alone, just let it do its thing and just let it sleep. Nature sleeps during the winter, the insects sleep. Your mammals, a lot of your mammals are hibernating, and as Pauline says, then you can observe them emerging and coming out, and don't be tempted to tidy too much, just let it be. And yes, you might have some lovely planters, but don't be so quick to pull out the wee things that are growing in between, because actually when they flower, they're quite nice. You mightn't want loads of them, but you could leave a couple of them in there, and some of your wee grasses that pop up in amongst your your vegetables or whatever, leave them to a point, because those are food sources for lots of different types of butterflies, fairly common butterflies that we want to keep going, and then there's thousands of moth species as well that you just won't see, and they're all hanging out there in those places, and multiple other things as well. And as I said, simple things like nasturtiums. Like I've got a large white butterfly just all over my broccoli, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I'm gonna pull off the caterpillars and put them on the nasturtiums because they can feed on them instead. So even understanding those wee things and with companion planting, and it's all a learning process. You don't have to sacrifice your veggies. You can put them on something else and they can still grow. So you can grow with nature and you can have that connection as well, and learn with that. So it'll be really interesting, and you'll see it grow over time, and yeah, kids will love it.
I think you're on mute, Gillian.
Sorry, I'm just going to share a link to the Butterfly Conservation website, which has got loads of great information on it too. And Rosie, you shared links with us before. I think we're going to be collating all the stuff from all 4 sessions and sending those out. Isn't that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, that'll all be emailed out within the next few days. So all of those resources are on the document, so they'll all be at kind of one handy place.
Fantastic.
Can I ask one last thing just before you go? Something just occurred to me there in my head. I was just sort of thinking about this. With all this talk of climate change and hotter temperatures and stuff like that, and the way things seem to be going, where, you know, we're talking about seasons there, and spring seems to be so much earlier and summer seems to be earlier, whatever. Do you think that's going to affect how we plant? Or, and something that worries me is that, say for example, over the summer months where we're not in school, like, how do we look after those gardens and making sure they get that nourishment and the water and all that kind of thing? Sorry, I know that's very general, but it's just sort of, I was thinking about it.
Well, no, it's a really good question, Helena, because you're right. I suppose the thing about, as Linda had said earlier, about, you know, if you plant native species that are more resilient, but, you know, how resilient can species be when you get like 40 degrees, as we saw, you know, in England this week and stuff. I would say probably over time, you know, obviously, I suppose that the whole world tries to do as much as it can to reverse the temperature rising or keep it under 1.5 degrees. But and actually, all the things that you're doing in your schools or in your communities is actually going to help that, you know, by planting trees, planting hedges, and, you know, planting more plants, that, because invariably you go into schools and everything's just mowed and trimmed and spread within an inch of its life. And it's our vision and our dream that, like, every school has a productive orchard and a fruit garden and is surrounded by a native hedge, and you know, is a lovely, amazing, like, microclimate space for nature and for pupils and for teachers and for the community and for everything. So it's, you know, I suppose the thing is what you're doing is a really positive step, and not get converted by that. But no doubt that like change is coming, and there are hotter temperatures and stuff, and even in terms of you know, saving water by using water butts and things. And looking after, like, I know there's some schools who organize like a rota system with maybe, you know, parents who live nearby who, you know, could you come in. The thing about watering is it's if you can give something a really, really, really good watering once a week, that's so much better than giving it a wee dribble every day.
Right. Okay.
So that, like, a really good soak and a really good drink, sort of in the morning or later in the evening, and you don't need to be running every day to do that. And it's the same with like fruit trees and fruit bushes. It's like gives them a really good drench, and using things like mulches, you know, around, you know, layers of compost, and even like newspaper or straw or grass clipping, stuff like that, that's going to keep your moisture in too.
I just want to add to that, Helena, that's where, if you can, partner in with a community group, like a local, I don't know, local church group or community group or man's shed or hen shed or something like that comes in really handy, because it does give you that flexibility over the summer months. And like Jilly was saying, if you can partner that with, you know, maybe parents that are keen to help, and you've got that core group of parents that are in the area, I think that really helps people get through the summer months of school. So it is something that everyone's going to struggle with, and it's unfortunate that, you know, some of the produce you might be growing, if you're wanting to grow fruit and veg, might be ready to harvest over the summer, and you're obviously not in school at the time. So I think that's really where communities and schools can work together.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Talk to your school as well. You know, I think probably one of the stipulations on your grant application would have been to consider, you know, the maintenance of your pollinator garden and stuff over the summer. Hi, Gareth. Over the
Sorry,
summer.
he couldn't resist, Brenda. He could not resist.
Sure. Couldn't help himself. Yeah, but it will have been a stipulation on your application, you know, that it would have needed to be thought about how to maintain your garden over the summer months, you know, holiday periods, and for the next couple of years. You know, we really want to use this funding, you know, as a long-term project.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's kind of like, try and get support for that, and support from your school, support from your eco council. You know, can you get the kids involved? Can you get your ecos? You know, I know maybe it was quite last minute when you got the grant this year, but looking forward into the future, grandparents, kids, you know, really try and put a plan in place, you know, because we really want these gardens to be legacies. You know, you don't want your polytunnel to, you know, get wrecked. You know what I mean? We really need to make this a garden that's going to last. So try and get our support.
Yeah, our aim is to make it. It's actually called the Lasting Legacy. So we want it to last for a long time. You know. Yeah, that's great ideas. Thank you.
Or make the caretaker your best friend. Caretakers and cleaning staff can do a great job in the polytunnels and so on.
Yeah, totally.
Great.
I was thinking about designing where you plant and what you're planting as well, because there'll be some plants that be more resilient to drought and some more resilient to heavy rain that we've had too. And you can make slow release water just from a plastic bottle, turn it upside down and shoving it in the soil. So you could have some of those maybe for your vegetables or things that you're particularly worried about that you could slow release over time. And as Daisy rightly says, I mean, and Aoife with the community and the other guys, bring everybody on board, and hopefully you have included the management team within the school as well. If you don't include them, that one lead teacher or that one lead PTA member or whatever leaves and the whole thing could collapse. Make sure they're involved from the very, very start to keep that sustainability about your project. And hopefully that will help over time. And the All Island Pollinator Plan have a really cool project where they talk about pitches for pollinators. So if you have an area where the boys and girls play football or whatever it is that they do, obviously this is communication with your maintenance contractor or whoever's doing it in the school, to leave that pitch and let it grow over summer. Because if you're not using it or a summer scheme's not using it, you can just let the clover and things come through, and that's fantastic for those connective corridors across the school and into, well, wherever surrounding gardens or whether it's you know, on the edge of suburban countryside or whatever. So that's a really good idea as well. If you can do that, it'd be great.
I think quite a few schools as well, what we're coming across in some of the funding applications as well. This is very school heavy as well, so I'm sorry if there's small grant recipients here as well, but hopefully it you know, transfers. But yeah, a lot of the schools were saying get, you know, kids or whatever, get clubs to take ownership. It's not just the eco club, you know, the HA department or the art department could do a project, you know, sciences as well could get very involved in different projects. You know, I don't know, to make a bit of competition between sort of some of the P1s, P2s, you know, just get I think the more energy you put into it, the more ownership that they maybe have on it, and don't just think that it's just environmental or it's just about growing. You know, there's a lot of like science experiments or art things, or you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can get these kids involved as well. And every time that they're involved, it's educating, as well as, you know, eco schools and eco clubs. There's a lot of different things that can be done there.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Anybody? We're coming up towards, I suppose, the end of time. Anybody, any other questions you need answered?
I have a burning question for Rosie. The big debate, Buddleia.
Oh, yes, gosh.
The plant or not to plant.
Yeah, it's funny because I mentioned that. I mentioned that in an interview recently, and it was like, so this comes into your head. You're like, butterfly plant.
Should we give a bit of background to that to people that maybe
it's really invasive. It's kind of amazing as well because it can literally grow in cracks and walls, and I quite admire plants like that, even if they are invasive.
I actually have one growing in the crack in my wall in my yard, and I thought it was dead because it didn't flower, but it's just flowered this week, so still kicking about.
Yeah, so I suppose, yeah, you need to be careful structurally with what it can do and if it can weaken a structure. But you can cut it right back to its root, and it'll regrow again. So you can control it in that sense. And it doesn't spread by you know, plant material or anything, but it is fantastic for butterflies. Okay in a garden. If it's in a school, they can get really big. It can get monstrously big. So do think carefully about if you do choose to plant one. And like I said, it'll take a real good beating. You could cut it right down to the bottom in the winter and it'll come back again, and before you know it, it'll be flowering again. So yeah, it's really just about how to manage it. But the lady who asked about herbs and stuff, those are just fantastic, simple, easy things that you can plant with kids, and you know, have all those different kind of levels of engagement, smells and food, and all those different types of interactions with nature and the different insects and stuff that will come to those. So also don't forget to think, if you're short of space, we spoke about vertical gardens last time, so planting up a wall, obviously check health and safety comes first, check structurally that's structurally sound, and you can do that, but you can do it with pallets and things like that, recycled materials as well. And if you want to have a water source, you can have small water sources, and you know, I don't know, tin buckets and stuff from Free Cycle that we mentioned before. There's really simple wee ways you can do that, and you can create a little mini pond for various different invertebrates almost instantly, with not very much money. Yeah, so you don't need to dig a big massive pond and go crazy. You can do lots of little ones, little satellite ones, and use as much space as you can. So
I think
just to
I'm out on the Buddleia. I don't
just to say about one final closing comment about the Buddleia. I think it really comes down to how much you're prepared to, like as Rosie said, work to maintain it and prune it back, because it can spread really quickly, and how much space you have and how much of that you want to dedicate to helping native species that are taking a wee bit of a hammering, because there's no danger of Buddleia going extinct on this island anytime soon. Like, you keep a wee eye out when you're on the train, or you know, walking around like inner city urban areas, like any wee, like Rosie saying, it'll grow anywhere. Like, you know, you see it in brownfield sites all the time. So it is a great plant for pollinators. In my view, there's no shortage of it. So kind of about what you want to prioritize planting, and maybe you just want to plant everything and that's sweet, you're happy with whatever going in your garden. So but Jilly, over to you.
I was going to say, it'll depend where your school is as well, so obviously where you're located. If you're beside a woodland, or you're in a suburban / rural area, you need to be very careful about what you plant, because they can literally just jump and away they go. So yeah, so do think about that. Think about your surrounding landscape and what it'll connect to. Yeah, but I said you can buy other things in garden centres. You can buy pheasantberry in garden centres. That's also a really invasive species. It does have lovely flowers, and you can do some really interesting stuff with the stems because it's like bamboo. But just be careful. I'm sure there's advice from you guys about what you should and shouldn't plant and what to be careful about when you go to a garden centre. But yeah, it's all there, I'm sure, for the knowledge.
Thank you, Rosie. Yeah, I was just going to say about the water thing, that actually talking about the climate and how dry it is and how dry it's been in July and stuff, that leaving out wee shallow dishes of water with like wee sticks or pebbles and stuff in them, so you know, so insects can come and have a drink, but if they fall in, they're not going to drown, is really important, and for hedgehogs and stuff like that. So and I know that's hard if you're, you know, if you're not in school all the time, but small pieces of water, it's amazing how, you know, how that can sort of help the nature around the place. So is that kind of us then, do you think? I wanted to say thank you very much to Rosie again from Butterfly Conservation and to Pauline for joining us this evening as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. It's
100%.
lovely to have you.
Thank you so much, guys. And we will be sending out our we don't just disappear after we finish the Zoom call. Like, we're still here to take other questions or comments or any feedback. We would really appreciate it. And we're hoping to do a few kind of in-person workshops in a few different council areas coming into the start of the school year next year, so keep an eye out for those. But in the meantime, if there is anything, you're free to contact us, and we'll be making sure that you have our biodiversity at Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful email address for any other wee comments or questions.
Lovely. Enjoy your evening, everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.